You're watching City Channel 4, your window to our community.
All right, I call to order the Iowa City Council Economic Development Committee meeting of July 12th, 2016. We usually like to go around the room so we can get everybody's name for the record. If we could start.
Sure. Rebecca Needs, Iowa City Area Chamber of Commerce.
Karen Harrison, National Development Council.
Tom Banta, Iowa City Area Development Group.
Jeff Fruin, City Manager's Office.
Jim Throgmorton, Mayor of Iowa City.
Rock Nicole, City Council.
Susan Mims, City Council.
Wendy Ford, Economic Development Committee.
Michelle Kenyon, Program Director, Field to Family.
Eleanor Dove, City Attorney.
Thank you, everybody.
Hi, Michelle. It's nice to see you.
Hi, thank you. Nice to see you too.
Number 2, consider approval of minutes from the June 14th, 2016 Economic Development Committee meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Number 3, consider request from Field to Family for funding. Wendy?
Yeah. You had in your packet a request from Michelle Kenyon for 2 pieces of funding. One, $5,000 for this coming field to, I'm getting my festivals mixed up. Can you help me with this? Field to Family Festival in September. $5,000 for that from this year's funding. And another request to be considered for $20,000 in funding for next fiscal year. Field to Family is a really interesting organization that focuses on a lot of the things that City Council has an interest in, and that is promoting local food production, connecting local food producers with local food consumers, all of us, helping with the education about healthy foods, and then also bringing that education to as many pieces and parts of the community as possible. We think that the mission of Field to Family is good. I want to make that clear up front. The first thing we do as staff when we get a letter of request is consider where are we going to fund a request like this from. And that was the first thing that we looked at. There are 2 sources that we can consider. We could consider, at least in our mind. One was the Local Foods Initiative funding, which is that new $25,000 fund that you all as City Council put together with instructions to partner with the county and move local foods initiative programs forward. We thought that that was a potentially good source, but ended up recommending against the use of that because we were under the impression that Field to Family had received a $5,000 piece of funding for the Share the Harvest dinner, which is coming up here, and in which they're working in partnership with the Iowa City Downtown District and other restaurants locally to produce. However, I believe I misunderstood that the Share the Harvest dinner is different than a dinner that's associated with the festival in September. And I'll let Michelle help elucidate that. That aside, the requirement for the Local Foods Initiative funding that you all had, that the funding be used in conjunction with or in collaboration with efforts of the county, we felt that because we didn't feel there was that connection with the county, that wasn't an appropriate use, since $5,000 was already going to a dinner that was in collaboration with the county. And for the public's sake, the Local Foods Initiative funding that I'm speaking about also has had expenditures this year of another $5,000 that was used in conjunction with the county on a program called Double Up Bucks, which is a very neat program that helps folks who use the SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, get twice for their money at the farmer's market what they could otherwise. That seems a perfect match for these funds, has the county collaboration with it, assists low-income folks with being able to have twice the buying power they would otherwise, assist the farming community with buyers that have twice the buying power that they would have otherwise, et cetera. So with those two $5,000 expenditures out of the local foods initiative funding, that does leave $15,000 in there. But again, for the reasons I stated before, we felt that that wasn't the appropriate use for those funds. Now, because the funding request came through the Economic Development Division, we also have what we've always called the Economic Development Opportunity Funding. And this is a fund that each year, at least for the past several years, has been funded with $100,000 and has had the parameters, general parameters, and they're not written in stone, that the funds be used for businesses that are geared to attracting employers of a certain job quality, that have specific job aspects or employment aspects to them. For example, that would be the fund that we use to assist Meta Communications with some of the finishing needs that they had on their office building. And that netted then 66 new employees in the center of town, making a wage that was above the average labor shed wage. So these funds then, we could say, helped raise the average labor shed wage by bringing them into the center of town. So you're getting you're getting from me the filters that we had to put this request through, and why this recommendation right now as it stands is we're recommending that it be denied. However, Michelle is here, and luckily we had a chance to speak before the meeting. I'm really glad we did. Because I wanted to make sure, and she wanted to make sure we understood, this was the beginning of a conversation, and that perhaps there are ways we can make this a win-win-win for the city, for the county, and for Field to Family, which ultimately should be benefiting the entire community. So while today's recommendation is not to go forward with this particular request, we wanted to look at it as the start of a conversation going forward. So if you have some questions for me, I would take them. Otherwise, I would hand the microphone off to Michelle.
So Wendy, just to be clear, your recommendation applies both to the $5,000 for this year and to the $20,000 that might be included in the budget for next year?
Yes, and as with any request from an organization, we would want to be able to discuss the financials, and Michelle was very forthcoming with 3 years of financials for us. Although they, as with any set of financials, they beg some questions. We have some questions to go over before we could make a recommendation that a $20,000 request be considered for next year's budget as well.
Wendy, and I guess I have a little bit more of a historical question. I know, of course, the city has supported local foods initiatives in the past, but was there a particular program like this in the past where we had designated local foods funding? Because as I look at the proposal, it also looks sort of, as we develop this, it would be helpful that we sort of post some criteria so that when you are, because it's looking like we don't really have the mechanism to sort of say, well, is this sort of economic development committee or is this something new? So have we had a specific fund like this in the past? Because that's what it really seems like to me, is that we need to sort of think about, and just a little bit of guidance to the community when they're seeking these funds, sort of what are we looking to accomplish?
I don't think we've had anything with
No, we've had,
like this.
I think historically, we would have looked at probably our community event funding line item, which is not restricted just to local food, but any type of small festival. Generally, those community events that we support are anywhere from a couple $100 up to a few $1,000s, and they're your smaller festivals and gatherings. I believe they've applied through that program in the past, and maybe have not received funds. Those are, competitive programs, but I'd have to go back and look at the history. To me, historically, how we've used the ED funds, I would not think that this type of program fits that well. And we max out those $100,000 funds pretty easily every year with various smaller incentives to businesses that bring jobs. So I think this really fits the local foods initiative, and for us, it was trying to determine, of the remaining $15,000 for the entire fiscal year. Again, we just started July 1st. We've already committed 10.
Yeah.
Is this 5,000 going to get us the biggest bang for our buck? And I think that our staff, particularly Brenda Nations, and the county staff with Shanti, I think they've got some other things that they're discussing that perhaps could yield some greater benefits to the city. So we didn't want to commit that extra 5,000 now. I think of the future, if the council directs the staff to budget or includes in the budget, additional local foods dollars beyond that 25, it certainly would give us more flexibility. It's just the regular trade-off that you get when you go through the budgeting process. You add here, you take away there, type of deal.
What does put a particular twist on this is that it's a part of a local food economy initiative. So there's an overlap.
Sure.
Maybe we can hear from Michelle. Did you want to tell us a little bit more about?
Yes. Hi. Again, I'm Michelle Kenyon, Program Director for Field to Family. Thanks again for having this on the agenda. I will apologize for not understanding fully the process.
Not a problem.
Our proposal was really meant as to start a conversation, and understanding that the City Council were very excited about the interest now for local foods. We've been working in local foods for 15 years. We've changed a lot. Our organization has been very grassroots. And we did share our financials. They're very grassroots financials. We strive to get as much done as we can with the little funding that we have. However, it's growing. It's grown a lot in the last 2 years, at least in interest, and it's showing up now in our bottom line and will for our next fiscal year. We're excited about that because there are more resources. I've also served as the Food Policy Council Chair for Johnson County for 4 years now. For 3 years now. I've served on the council for 4 years, and I'm beginning another year as the chair. I very much look forward to enjoy working with the county, and we've applauded the county for hiring a local food specialist. That's very unique in the state and really in the nation. And it has created opportunities for our work. Shanti has been essential in helping write grants and bring together partners. Because as a grassroots organization, it's hard for us to find the extra time it takes to meet everyone, get everyone together, and facilitate new programming and leverage resources together. So Shanti's support and the county's support in hiring Shanti has been essential. And really, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today if the county didn't hire a local food specialist. So, and I'm glad to be here again to share the work that we've been doing and the direction we're heading. We did choose to approach the Economic Development Committee primarily because local foods and the expansion of local foods very much affects our economy. More food dollars that are spent within our Foodshed, research has shown it's ×4 when it comes to labor and other advancements when we do spend more money with our foods. Also, we're an epicenter of local foods. We're growing. Our business and communities, our business leaders are seeing that they can offer real life solutions to our current food system. We have a great partnership with the Iowa City Area Development Group, ICAD. They're giving us workspace in return for a sponsorship, but also, we share a passion for local foods and for inspiring local foods-based businesses. They've done great work in that avenue, a lot of new announcements coming from ICAD all the time when it comes to local foods-based businesses wanting to come to this area. And really, what we're anticipating our festival transforming into is bringing together all sectors of our food system, from the growers and the distributors, the processors, the eaters, all of us together. And that's part of the work that we do at Field to Family. But like I said, we're a grassroots organization. So in order to really propel our festival and propel our work, we're asking for an investment. And we're asking for a discussion on what that could look like. Ultimately, we feel that not only the Iowa City, but the University of Iowa, along with Johnson County, are growing a strong local foods movement. And ultimately, our goal is to enhance our human, environmental, social, and economic health in our region. And a stronger food system will do that.
Michelle, I know it's really early in the discussion process and looking at resources, and as the organization is growing, and commend you for what's happened because it's good for all of us. Has any effort been made or any thought given to reaching out to any of the other municipalities in the area, like Coralville and North Liberty?
There has for our extended plans for 2017, absolutely. We've been working primarily in Iowa City area in the past for our festival. It started off as a fundraiser for the Iowa Public Radio KUNI station eons ago, and it has changed in many ways to offer more education, as well as the many delicious culinary excellence we have here in our city. But primarily our events are downtown Iowa City.
I just think it becomes a bigger and bigger issue as we go forward, and we're getting asked more and more to support various nonprofits, many like yours, which are doing great work, and we want to see grow and succeed. But that the ask is not always just coming to Iowa City. I think that's really, really important, that we aren't footing the bill for the whole county. So I think I would encourage you to make that a big part of what you're doing, is making the ask in other locations as well.
Thank you, and I absolutely agree. And that's part of our work with Johnson County, too, is to recognize that, because we just received a program to expand our farm-to-school chapter. We offer it in the Iowa City Community School District, and as you know, the school district touches, many municipalities in Iowa City and Johnson County. And so we're excited to be able to expand our farm-to-school chapter to help reduce food insecurity in our county. And that's a new partnership with the county, of course. But also, we are starting we're working with the county and ICAD and Iowa City Downtown District, and we're reaching out to our partners in Lynn County to reformulate our Buy Fresh, Buy Local chapter into a Grown Here, Made Here program. And there's a little more information in this packet I've sent you, but ultimately we're focused on promoting farmers and the food that's grown and how it's distributed, processed, aggregated, and ended up on the table for our Foodshed. And our Foodshed we're generally defining as Lynn, Johnson, and contiguous counties, but ultimately it's basically how far out your food is grown. And ultimately, the more work that we do to enhance and improve our Foodshed, the stronger our economic system is here in our region. And so we're excited to reach out to definitely other municipalities in Johnson County as well as other counties in the area for that endeavor.
Right.
There's a lot of great ideas and a lot of new initiatives. And Field to Family, we're playing our part, but we're not able to do everything, And I will say that we did have some marketing research done on this new certified local label that I was mentioning, and I wanted to also include that as part of our pitch to let you know that we are getting information, research-based information to help us decide the direction we're going.
So I'd like to say a few words in relationship to the $20,000 for next fiscal year. I don't want to commit anything at the moment, but I'm pretty intrigued by the possibility, especially in light of a conversation that Jeff and I had this morning with a prominent local official. I don't know how explicit I can be about this, but involving taking steps to really enhance the riverscape between Hancher and True Blood Park. And one means of doing that would be to have festivals and other activities take place on the riverside. And when I think about that in relation to food, I think, okay, it would connect water quality, the importance of water quality, to the local food economy, local growing of food, to connecting with those better food, better nutrition to lower income people within the city, and so on. So when I look ahead to next year, I see considerable possibilities with regard to having a festival take place on the riverside somewhere. I don't know where the best location might be, and I don't know if it's really something you would want to do either. But it seems to me there's considerable possibilities there that could be explored.
Well, I really like what Wendy had talked about as the start of the conversation. I am a huge fan of what all the local groups have done. And, I think as we sort of develop this fund, I think that's what really we need to have our goals to sort of set out more clear criteria in terms of when you are making the application, what things are we looking at? And we're talking about the conversation. It would seem to me that as staff works through some of these proposals, that maybe at some point we would want sort of a very simple paragraph or two just to identify when they're applying for these funding, since there is no historical precedent, what are the sort of things that they're looking at, so that when you put the time and effort into, I'll say, only speaking for myself, I love the SNAP. I mean, in terms of what we've done so far, it hooks in with the county, which I think is really important. It fulfills an unmet need, and it piggybacks upon an existing operational entity. So those are the sorts of things, like going forward, I think getting that support from the county or another organization and then jointly submitting it is something, at least for me, I think is the type of thing that would be helpful. And in those particular programs too, those were ones where staff had the discretion to authorize. So in terms of this ongoing conversation, I'm assuming if there are different dollars amounts that the staff feels comfortable with, you would have discretion to make those decisions. This particular one came through the Economic Development Committee. And back to ICAD, I know that there are some larger economic development projects with local foods in terms of trucking, distribution, et cetera, that could come our way too. And I'd imagine those would be more of the sorts of projects, at least in terms of that 100,000 yearly, that would probably be more funneled through us. So I like the concept of starting the conversation, and hopefully we can reconsider this at a later time, because I don't want you guys to think that if we do vote no, that we're not supportive. We're 100% supportive of what you guys are doing, but I think we just need to have more clear funds or direction. And I think, as Jeff said, we only have $15,000 left for this year. So I really like the concept of the seed funding. That we're really trying to do is catalyze with very small investments, larger growth in the community. So that's sort of my 2 cents, but I think it's a great proposal, and it's a great start for the conversation.
I would agree particularly with your last point, Rockne. When we have these smaller pots of money, ways to use them as seed funding with the organizations working to find other ways to raise money and or other partners, because we all know that we continue to get more and more requests every year, and we can't just continue to fund all of the ones we've done in the past and just keep adding more. So if we can try to do some of these more as seed funding, like you suggested, and they start building their own fundraising network, whether it's through donations or events, bigger events where they're raising money for their needs, then that allows us to kind of adapt and change where we're putting money over periods of years to kind of help the next good thing get started until it can support itself. So I think that's a really good point.
And I think also for the grants, I know earlier in the year there was that effort to get the Kresge Foundation grant where they were looking for county and city funding, and that would have been a much larger grant. So I think those are the ways that we can really catalyze the support that we can give.
In terms of the collaborative point that you were just mentioning, Susan, do you have any connections with elder services? And if not, might there be some fruitful collaboration there?
Absolutely. There's a lot of organizations that we should be partnering with and could be partnering with. But like I said, we are limited by our resources and their availability. We are recently now working to reduce food insecurity in the greater Johnson County area, and that's a new reach for Farm to School. I work very closely with Nutrition Services Director Allison Demery with the school district, and I procure local food for the school lunch menu. And that's about as, of course, we support school gardens, and we hold educational events at the schools on sustainable food systems. But this is a new program to expand Farm to School to the neighborhoods in the school district. So we're just now beginning conversations with the Crisis Center and their mobile food pantry. And of course, we've been supportive of Greater Johnson County from the beginning because it fulfills a very big need in our community. On the other hand, a lot of our work, at least initiatives in local foods that increase economic development, the funding is very limited. We are in the state of Iowa. We have 2 main crops in the state of Iowa, and And if you start adding fruits and vegetables in there, they're very low on the priority list when you look holistically. So, we've worked with Iowa State University and Leopold Center for Sustainable Agriculture. We've reached out to other agencies. We've had funding from them in the past. We've continued to partner with them, including Practical Farmers of Iowa. They're great organizations, but their reach can only go so far. So the increased, support for local foods is really, going to accelerate the local foods movement in our community just because you're talking about it. Mm-hmm. So and we're just, like I said, we just want to join the conversation. But at the same time, we're a grassroots group, so we can only do so much. And I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for Shanti Sells being hired as the local food specialist from Johnson County, because she's been able to leverage partnerships in a way that we haven't been able to, including for the street dinner. So I did want to address that, which I meant to right away. I'm sorry, Wendy. But we had one of our board members had an idea to do a street dinner and support to raise funding. And we shared it with Shanti, and she had heard from the Iowa City Downtown District. And the city, of course, Tammy Newman from the Farmers Market also had interest in doing a street dinner. So she brought us all together. And it sounds like this, we named it Farm to Street Dinner. And, but we are, and so Field to Family's role, we're involved this year. We're helping planning. We do receive the Farm to School chapter at Iowa City Community School District does receive the proceeds. So we're very excited about that. We don't, the initial $5,000 goes into cover the expenses. And it's a first-time event. We've talked about long-term, like buying more supplies for future events and stuff like that, but it sounds like we're going to have to, rent everything from the beginning. We're excited. Tickets sold out, I think, in 3 days. There's a huge interest in having a street dinner.
What is the date of that?
It's August 18th. It's a Thursday night. They're going to close Lynn Street. And it was a huge success. The Iowa City Downtown District and working with Shanti and Brenda Nations pulled off. And then, one of our board members is providing support for handling the actual functions of the back of the house and the front of the house logistics, which is very important. There's not a back or front of the house on the street. And so we are able to do that. And like I said, we are getting the proceeds. We don't know what that is, but we're very excited. And I think next year it will continue, and they'll choose another organization to promote or another initiative to promote for next year. So that was great, seed money that you
When
gave.
you mentioned Shanti, I think that although I don't think that's an absolute condition precedent to funding, I think given the fact we have the Johnson County Food Coordinator, I'd really like to see those proposals and partner with Shanti and, Brenda, so when they come through it, that there's more organizations involved in the proposal. But a huge fan of what you guys are doing, and so it's the start of the conversation.
I'd just like to say I already bought 2 tickets.
Okay.
Yeah, I
We
did it the
tried
first
to,
day.
but
Missed out, huh?
missed out, yeah.
Ah, I did
We
too.
waited too long.
Yeah.
We do
So-
have a meeting today, so I'll mention that.
They can add some seats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right, extra seat for Rock.
Yeah, we'll need a big one.
Wendy, do you want an actual motion on this and vote? Since staff recommended denial, I don't know if we need,
I don't know that a formal.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. All right, anything else then on that? Thank you very much, Michelle. This
Thank
has
you.
been a great, very informative for me. I think good information, and again, a really good start to the conversation that,
Thanks again, and I do
Outstanding.
encourage you to read
Definitely.
the handout. I know,
Thanks for bringing it.
apologize for the small print, but it does let you know a little bit about our work and the direction we're heading and the people we are currently working with.
thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, staff report.
Okay, well, we are well into getting our dates set and planned for the 8 TIF policy focus group meetings. It is no small task, as you might imagine. This is the list of people, the list of options for each group of people. We're on our second set of 3 options for the 4th group, and we're ending up ordering lunch. As you can tell, it's kind of a monumental group. We've had one, however, last week or the week before.
Week before, I
guess it
think.
was. Yep, Susan was the committee member who was present on that, and it was informative. It was a group of folks that have had TIF applications be approved before. Some of those projects have moved forward, some of them haven't, and we get a lot of feedback from them. I don't know if you want to share any of that now, but I figured we would assemble all of the feedback so that we could really look at it as a, from a 30,000-foot view before we started to really.
I think that's a good idea, because otherwise we might be prejudiced by the first 2 or 3.
That's fine.
Yep,
That's fine.
certainly. So the second and third meetings the second TIF focus group is tomorrow. Jim's sitting in on that one. And that is a group of developers, architects, and engineers. Everything looks to be a go on that. Each group then.
Yeah, we're doing it here? I guess I'm not sure.
We'd hope to do it here. We're actually going to be in the city manager's conference room, so it'll be a little tighter than usual. But we're short on meeting rooms in City Hall, so
Okay.
We'll make it work. At our last EDC meeting, we talked about the questions that we wanted to be asking of each of the focus group attendees, and that conversation was very helpful, and I ended up putting together a SurveyMonkey survey that I'm having each participant fill out ahead of the meeting, so we can get an idea of each group's baseline knowledge on TIF coming in, each group's and each group's really baseline opinion about TIF. And those are probably going to sort of go lockstep with the category of group that we're looking at. So I'm keeping the answers to all of those same survey questions separate, and we'll also be able to look at all of those as we go through after the TIF focus group process. But I did want to share with you the set of questions that we are sending out there for each focus group to answer. I want to keep these the same. I prefer not to edit them going forward, but I did want you to see the questions that we're asking that will help get this baseline information on knowledge and opinions ahead of the time.
The one thing that I would add, when not to go into detail about the information from the first focus group, but I think Wendy would concur that well, we have this list of questions that we kind of talked about, not with SurveyMonkey, but that we're asking in the focus group. It can be a challenge to keep people on task because people have a lot of information they want to share and a lot of opinions that they want to share, and that doesn't always fit perfectly into a box when you ask a certain question. So I think there was probably at least a couple questions that Wendy asked multiple times to try and corral people back to a question that maybe one person had started to answer and then had kind of gone off in a different direction. I think we just have to accept that, and we've asked the questions, but the most important thing is gathering as much of that input and feedback, which is what we really want from people. So it's a moving target as you're discussing this with groups.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I like these questions too. We spent a lot of time in our last meeting making sure they were as neutral as possible. I think that to the extent that that's possible, I think this is sort of a good format and good questions.
Oh, good. Good. And that's really all I had on that, along with a reminder that our next EDC meeting will be August 5th.
Okay.
And I'll be sending out a reminder on that as well. But
Anything else from staff? No?
Nope.
Okay. Anything from the committee? Hearing none? Any other business? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
3-0, we are adjourned. It is
Good deal.
12:34.
You're watching City Channel 4. On TV, online, on demand, on Facebook, and now on the go on your mobile device.